So here we start at 8 weeks gestation. So at this point, we are calling our embryo is now officially a fetus. And here they've illustrated the lumbar vertebra starting to form. So here would be like L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. And so what we can observe at this point is that we can see that the vertebra are in line with the end of the spinal cord. So vertebral column and spinal cord are lined up, and the nerve is coming off the spinal cord at its corresponding level. So this would be spinal nerve L5, and it's coming off just below vertebra L5. So right now, L5 nerve, for example, is coming off at the same level as its vertebra. But then look at 14-week fetus. What's happening here? The growth and elongation of the vertebra of the vertebral column is outpacing the growth of the spinal cord. So now notice how the spinal cord appears to be kind of shorter than the vertebral column. It's not that it's shortened, it's just that the vertebral column grew longer, faster than the spinal cord. So now what you're starting to see is rather than coming off at the exact same level, notice how the nerve comes off a little bit higher than where it actually comes out between its vertebra. So this is still L5. It still wants to come out under L5, but now it's almost like the spinal cord is pulling it up a little bit. And even though that's not exactly what's happening, because really just what's happening is the vertebral column is getting longer, but that's how it looks. And then look at birth. Here's vertebra L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. We still want that spinal nerve to come off the spinal cord at inferior to L5, but look where the spinal cord is. The end of the spinal cord is way up here now. It's definitely not at the level of L5. So what happens is that the nerves still want to come out between L5, but the spinal cord is far away. So what you end up with is like these red and blue strands, which represent the cauda equina. Because basically what happened is the vertebral column kept getting longer. Its growth outpaced the growth of the spinal cord, which keeps elongating till about the age of 4. So the growth of the vertebral column outpaced the growth of the spinal cord. So now the spinal cord is ending all the way up here, but those nerves, they're still associated with this exit point under the L5 vertebra. So really they have to grow longer in order to be able to still come off at that point. And so that's how you end up with the cauda equina. So what they call it sometimes is they call it like ascent, the ascent, like the going up, ascent or retraction of the spinal cord. But it's really not that the spinal cord ascended or retracted. It's just that the growth of the vertebral column outpaced the growth of the spinal cord. So now if you see here, again, here's your conus medullaris. Here's the end of the spinal cord. And of course, from our previous study, we know the spinal cord ends between L1 and L2 vertebrae. And then because those nerve roots still need to come out of that same location where they were located back here in the fetus, now those nerve roots are just much longer so that they can reach from where the spinal cord is all the way up here between L1 and L2, and they can reach all the way down to that point where they want to exit below L5. So essentially, that's why you end up with the spinal cord shorter than the vertebral column, because the elongation of the vertebral column outpaces the elongation of the spinal cord. And so to make up for the difference, to make up for the gap, and still have your nerve roots come off at their correct locations, that's why you end up with the cauda equina. Higher up, everything up until the end of the spine, everything before L1 to L2, those nerve roots are going to come off at their corresponding levels. But anything after L1 essentially is going to come off like the cauda equina. It's going to have to stretch down to its corresponding location.